Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Sandy Bob Show. This is a show where we share some very interesting things that you don't find from normally other sources. And we always start the show, or we're going to start doing the show by reminding everybody to do the new you. And for those new to the show, the new you is a song that can be sung, and we recommend that you sing it for about 20 minutes in the morning when you get up and 20 minutes at night before you go to sleep at night. And if you're rushed, you can, or new to it, you could actually do it for 15 minutes. But the reason why we do it for 15 or 20 minutes is every day is to show intent to the real guides. Now, the real guides are from the All Is, and they have come to planet Earth to assist anybody that wants to find out what the truth is and get out of this hellish Earth living that they're living in and go back to where paradise is on the real side, and they can show the way, and that's what we're all about. Is we're sharing information. We're trying to wake people up that things are not right on this planet. So the way you do the new you is you sing it something like new you, and you sing it rather than chant it, and you just sing that, and you can do it out loud, or you can do it to yourself silently internally, and that's all you have to do, and ask the real guides to show you what is real, and they will come to you in your dream state and start opening up vistas that you never even knew existed. Well, today I would like to start talking about the photon belt, and I know that Dwayne the Great Writer has talked about the photon belt. And I first became aware of the photon belt around 1990. I have a friend that worked for the government, was a CIA agent, and was privy to a lot of the hidden information that wasn't really made to the public. And she told me that we were about to encounter the photon belt, and it would make drastic changes on the planet Earth. It would raise people's level of consciousness way beyond anything that was ever seen in recent history, anyway, on the planet. And it would be a real time of awakening. And that was my first introduction to the photon belt. Well, recently, Dwayne the Great Writer has talked about that we're about to encounter the photon belt, and he says that it'll be very interesting also. Well, another thing, back in 1990, not only were the government officials saying that the photon belt would raise people's level of consciousness, all the Christians in the world, many of them were saying that the encounter with the photon belt was going to be the trigger that did the rapture. Now, for most Christians know what the rapture is, but if you're not a Christian, not familiar with the term rapture is where the Christians believe that they will be changed instantaneously. They will be changed from a mortal being into an immortal being, and then they will meet with Jesus Christ and rule with Jesus Christ for the rest of eternity on earth after he comes back to earth with his horde of saints and all the people with him. Well, anyway, so I decided that it might be an interesting thing to review the photon belt, and so I went online and did a little bit of research about what the current thinking of the photon belt is, and I found a neat article by Noel Huntley, PhD, and he's on the website bibliotechcapileides.net, and university, and he's Spanish, so it's /ESP something. But you can find him if you want to do a search, and you can find similar articles all across the internet. Well, anyway, he gives a little bit of history of the photon belt encounter, and he says that by means of satellite instrumentation, astronomers in 1961 discovered what appeared to be an unusual nebula. Now, a nebula is like a cloud, a gas cloud of stars or gases out in space. And when you have supernovas going off in these nebulas, they shine, and there's all sorts of really beautiful nebulas that can be seen by telescopes that you'll see in astronomy books. Well, anyway, he goes on to say, we normally understand the nebula phenomenon as a vast cloud-like mass of gas or dust. This one, however, appeared to have anomalous properties and was named the Golden Nebula. The public's attention was not drawn to this unusual revelation until much later, presumably when it was realized that this nebula's location was coincident with a projected orbit of our solar system. Around the early 1980s, a radio announcement in the U.S. was made that our solar system was in fact going to collide with an electromagnetic cloud in the not-too-distant future. This incredibly important statement of astronomical and historical significance was expressed in the usual causal and indifferent manner as though of little consequence. And then follow-up data was then suppressed, and another government cover-up was contrived for the typical purpose of exploiting, where possible, natural events to camouflage the chaos. So that's kind of a typical government reaction to this kind of thing. So the question is, what exactly is this electromagnetic cloud, this golden nebula, sometimes referred to as the radiant nebula by ETs? Well, what it is a more universal designation. Its more universal designation is photon belt or photon band, consisting of many bands, and any encounter with this belt is recognized by extraterrestrials as of great import. In fact, referred to more enlightened ETs, like the Pleiadians, as a planetary troubleshooter. And Dr. Noel Huntley has a video on his website showing what that's about. All right, so here's what he goes on to say. The whole universe is held together by means of vortices within vortices of centripetal energy. And I'll be talking more about that when we talk about holograms in the second part of the program today. They're associated electromagnetic fields like whirlpools on water within larger whirlpools. This is the machinery behind Einstein's space-time topology of general relativity. These spiraling energies give rise to natural space-time orbits, satellites around planets, planets around stars, solar systems around other more vortex centers, and so on. Our planet Earth orbits the sun once a year, but our solar system as a whole also traverses an orbit in this section of the galaxy with a period of about 24,000 years. There are many other solar systems in this cyclic motion, just as there are numerous planets orbiting the sun. The Pleiades, which is kind of central to the photon belt in a way, the Pleiades, which is encircled by the photon belt, is about 400 light years from us and is part of the system. And in fact, our solar system orbits the central sun of the Pleiades, and the name of that central sun is Alcyone. The photon belt consists of many photon bands emanating from the center of the galaxy and associated with the spiral arms of the galaxy. Thus, our solar system, and therefore planet Earth, takes some 24,000 years to come back to its same point in this particular orbit. Just picture several star systems with a massive orbit, but now just picture an overall a toroid or donut-shaped cloud cutting across these orbiting star systems. The photon belt is also described as an amoeba-like cloud of particles, but most of its frequencies are invisible. This is the photon belt or photon band. This means our solar system goes through the belt twice, each cycle of 24,000 years. The thickness of the photon belt or the photon cloud is such that it technically takes 2,000 years for our solar system to pass through, and therefore there's about 10,000 years between each encounter, and so it kind of goes in and out of this donut-shaped object twice in 24,000 years. Nevertheless, some sources state that the period in the band could be much less, 30 to 40 years, depending on man's resistance to change. And this is difficult to relate to our fixed cycle picture, but in addition, the same source points out that Earth was in trouble from the damage incurred by our civilization and called for the photon belt, a typical emergency call procedure for planets. Now, for anybody that's been paying any attention to our planet Earth, the planet Earth is in the process of dying. The governments have put so much poisons and gases and have poisoned the planet Earth so much that it's becoming very sick and is in the process of dying. All life on the planet will be extinct if this process continues for much longer. We're on a downhill path, and even as a side, last night or the night before on Coast to Coast, the scientists on that was talking about a new emergency for planet Earth that has not been made public yet, and that is the permafrost in eastern Siberia of Russia. There's a huge area that is melting off and allowing methane gases to escape from underground into the atmosphere. And he said if that goes the way it did 65 million years ago, all life on Earth will become extinct. And he says it's just boiling. The methane gas is just boiling out of the ground through the permafrost, which is melting because of everything that the governments are doing with their HARP projects and global warming and everything else. And he said if once that methane gas hits the atmosphere is going to warm up to 3 or 4 times its present temperature, and life will not be tenable. It's an extinction event, and the planet could be extinct in less than 2 years unless just even that portion of it is stopped. So because of this and the condition that planet Earth is, planet Earth, for people that don't know, is actually a living being. It's a living entity, and it is called on the photon belt as an emergency call, and the photon belt can respond by helping save the planet. So I'll continue the article here. It says, the fact that the call was synchronous with the orbital position merely indicates the higher plans, that the big picture would already have matters organized to happen in that way. This call occurred in 1947 and manifested as a signal which could have been monitored on the AM band, producing a clicking sound. And there was a gentleman by the name of Robert Shapiro who documented a lot of that. So then the article goes on, well, when is this interaction going to occur? Well, scientists around the globe in 1992 predicted that the encounter would occur within months. Other people said it wouldn't happen until after 2010 or 2012, and all these nobody knew exactly when we would encounter the photon belt. Other Pleiadians tell us that our solar system skimmed the belt for a few days in 1987, then contacted it for over a week in the following year, 1988, increasing the degree of entry each year. And then our sun went fully in 1998. And they were predicting at the time that it would be after 2012 before the Earth actually fully entered into the photon belt. But the leading edge of our solar system has already entered the photon belt. And that is the belt. The photon belt has an outer aura, which we enter first. And then we are not expected to experience the full-blown effects until after 2012. The article goes on to say, well, what does the photon belt consist of? What will its effects on life on our planet be? Will it be positive or negative? Also, what is its purpose, if any? The radio announcement used the term electromagnetic to describe the phenomenon. This is the same as photon, which is a particle of light or electromagnetic radiation. So the photon belt is really an immense region of space which is radiating intense electromagnetic radiation throughout the visible spectrum and beyond in the higher frequency invisible light. Even including some X-ray spectra, it is part of a magnetic flow of light throughout the galaxy. Reference has already been made through the media to huge increases in intensity of dangerous radiation entering through holes in the ozone layer in certain regions of our planet. Well, it appears that for mankind on this planet, the photon belt encounter will be essentially a spiritual experience. But this really depends on man. Nevertheless, the real benefits of this phenomenon is from what is actually called the photons. It is linked with the so-called convergences. If we are sufficiently evolved at the time, great advancements will occur in our consciousness as we attune to the higher frequencies. If we are negative, that is, possess too many lower vibrations, the result of selfish actions, we are not expected to survive the frequency incompatibility. And I remember back in the 90s that was really talked about a lot, especially in the Christian churches. They were telling everybody, you better get saved so you can survive and go through the rapture, and if you're not part of the rapture, you're going to wind up in a horrible, miserable place. So it's the same kind of thinking there.
Bob, can you kind of just go over again what the photon belt is in your own words, like what it is and what it means to the Earth? Is it a magnetic sort of a area in outer space? Is it around the Earth in some way, or the galaxy? How does it work? Where is it?
Well, if you look out in the night sky, you will. If you look up at night, and somewhere around, I would say around 10 o'clock or midnight, in the winter anyway, and look up, at least from where we live in northern Wisconsin, you look up almost overhead slightly to the south, and you can see the star system Orion. And Orion is it's a very common constellation that most people are familiar with. And if you look at the three stars in Orion's belt, and you follow, if you follow a straight line from Orion's belt off to the right, you'll some distance away, you'll see a blurry constellation. You'll see a whole group of stars that's like its own constellation. Well, that is the Pleiades. And the Pleiades is a star system that's very well known. It's been written down in history. There's a lot of writings about the constellation Pleiades. Well, what's interesting about the photon belt is centered around the Pleiades star system, and it's like a big donut shape around the Pleiades. And the Pleiades constellation is, according to this gentleman, about 400 light years away from here, from our solar system. Well, I know that back in the 90s when I was dealing with Semjase and the Pleiadians that came from the Pleiades, they said that their where they lived in the Pleiades was 500 light years from Earth, and it took them 7.5 minutes to get here in their advanced technology saucers that they were flying. But the photon belt is centered. It's like a huge donut right around, with the center of the donut being the Pleiades star system, and it's a gas cloud. It's a huge gas cloud, and this gas cloud is something, well, it's a huge cloud thousands of miles across, and because this gas cloud is so big, and we're so close to it, we actually pass through that photon belt, or photon cloud. And we do that twice every 24,000 years. So I don't know, does that help answer your question, Val?
Yeah, that helps a little bit. Henry has some information too I'd like to share. No, just a comment. That was interesting about the Maoris and stuff.
Oh yeah. Yeah, in New Zealand, the Maori people, the main stars they talk about are the 7 stars in the sky. I can't remember their name for it right now, but they celebrated it some time of the year, so maybe it's the same thing.
Well, I guess this has been going on for a long time, and so I'm sure that a lot of the older civilizations, the more advanced ones, knew about the photon belt.